Our next presenter is Mechthild Czapp. Have I pronounced her last name correctly?
Yes, you have.
Excellent. Okay. And she's going to be presenting on technological vocabulary in her language, Rejistanian, or Rejistanian? Rejistanian?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's close. Anyway, if anybody has ever followed her Rejistanian, that's the English pronunciation, Word of the Day blog, you see that she has words for absolutely all modern stuff. So here we go.
As you have already heard, Registania is a nation which is technologically, well, I would say modern tech. And by the way, here this is actually LCC4 in Rejistanian, the lower level. Naiken zikire Mechthild Czapp. Okay, and what is the Rejistanian language? It is first of all an auxiliary language for the world it is in. It is also, very agglutinative. It's a priori, and I use it, of course, in IRC and in my reality in my head, but also in the computer game Nation States, where Rejistania is a nation. Oops, sorry. I didn't even know this function works like this. I can already tell that, exactly. It always bugs me if a culture of a place where technology is very medieval, because then, without technology I would be blind, and so I always think this is a horrible fate for the people who live in the current culture. And so I made Rejistania as a place in a modern technology, even though so it differs. Certain things which always bug me about the current time do not really exist. Like for example, the technology is not as bloaty because this limit from where people could increase processor to which people could increase processor speed. This was not at this speed, but about 10 times lower. So, and a lot of open source software is used because companies try to do things. Include spy stuff in software for the government, and that got found out, and proprietary software became a no thing, a thing which is not to do. And I will just explain a bit about Rejistanian word formation, which we need here, and it's quite simple. At the beginning, the apostrophe. I know I was told by Lara not to use it, but in Rejistanian it's used quite excessively. At the beginning of a word, it just means that the stress shifts, that it's on the first syllable and not for the second one, and that's a verb. And there are these three classes. There is head for concrete objects, there's he for persons, and there's tan for ideas. And here, like Kara will probably like this as well. It's Amechi, which means to read, and then it's Amechihed, which is text, Amechihe, which is reader, and Amechitan, which is literacy. I use it very different. And now, how do we get new words at all in a language if we have a new technology? There are a few things. There are loan words, of course, which we have also a lot in English for technology. Not so much Tamagotchi, for example, is a loan word, but in other languages, in other European languages, there are a lot of them. And in Rejistanian, it has a sistema, it has a computero for for computer. And there's a way just to create it by using noun adjuncts. Basically, put something BitTorrent is pretty much an idea how it is done in English. And here it's Mechthild Czapp, which literally means just a message of cuteness, and that means a blue screen of death. It's an ironic statement just because actually the cute text, cute text or cute message can mean both. And of course, there is compounding. It's always interesting on what kind of terms compounds can be made of, and English normally does not compound verbs, but Rejistanian is quite fond of doing so. For example, here, Rejistanian means just to store. It's composed of Rejista, to retain, and Dimir to write. And yeah, then Dimir just means a line of text or a command. There's also, I call it repurposed, that something means something completely different. A key is not just something which you use to open a door. It's also something which I, for example, press to get to the next slide. And yes, a few words there are neologisms. I will explain the words here on the slide a bit. We already have talked about Mechthild Czapp, and there's also here Initan Odis, which means infrastructure, or it comes from Initan, which is order, and then Odis, which means in this case residence. So it's pretty much the order for the residents of a place. And yeah, Nenvai Dimir, that's line, and which is Nenvai, and Dimir written. So this comes from that. It's a written line, it's a command. And Ukuku head here as neologism, that's also, that's onomatopoetic. It should represent typing. Some of the things which in Rejistanian are considered evident are not considered evident in English, and that's quite on purpose, because I notice if you look at how onomatopoetic sounds across languages are, they are also quite different. I mean, look at the sound which, for example, a dog makes or a cat makes in the different languages. It's quite different. Yeah, and here's, for example, how systems are. Yeah, how the word sistema, which literally just means system, or basically something which works with electric power, so to say, something complicated which works electrically. How this works, and yeah, there's of course here some examples. Systeemheid Dogi, which Dogi comes here of course from Dogi, to give, and that means in this case to give something to the computer means to input something into the computer. So a Systeemheid Dogi means an input device. And then it's Itu means a sphere, but in this case it's a trackball. I'm very fond of these devices, and so they are quite common in Registan, more than these strange things which cause RSI, these mice. But of course mice also exist, and they are created by this term here, a key. It's actually has several meanings. Also, it's also used for to move a wheelbarrow or a plough. It might not immediately sound evident why these are related, but it's basically something. Yeah, something which is moved as a kind of something heavy which was moved, and a mouse is not really heavy, but it was still moved over an entire day by people who use it, and somehow it came from this, because people who still work with a mouse. Yeah, and of course, I just keep using this. Systeemheid ZW, that's actually pretty much a tag. It's ZW to use, so this is an operating system. And Systeemheid Ninita, which just means a non-touchable system that is software. Actually, a specific piece of software. If it was a general, you would need Systeemheid Ninita. And yeah, this is how it can get if you just put more and more noun adjunct behind it. It's Systeemheid system, Niger, which means control or oppression, and Kemas, which which basically means addition and version, and so it's a version control system. Which, by the way, I would recommend everyone to use for throttling so that earlier versions are still retained. Yeah, and also another metaphor which I would like to talk about. It's Amechi. I've already talked about it. It's text, but it's also a bit of a change in the perspective, because a lot of things are just seen as text for the Registanis, even though it's not for us. But yeah, if you need a magnifying glass for a text, it's still a text. It's not something different. So if you need say a special software to read something, it's also still a text, and at least in the perspective of a Registanis. And yeah, so Mechthild Czapp just means something which is sent. Or mail. It can also mean snail mail, but you can add, if you specifically want to say it's just email, you have to add the word krete, which is of course, I always say of course, it's just a sorry, I don't think that it's evident, but it's from reto in Esperanto, which means network, so it's text sent via network, and that's pretty much what an email is. And we already had the cute message, which of course is a blue screen, even though it's not blue in Rejistania, it's more like the kernel page on the Linux side. And we have Mechthild Czapp, which is source code. Czapp means command. So it's text which commands the computer to do something. And here Mechthild Czapp means link, and it's also connection, and it's text over connection. Of course, you would need a program like Wireshark to actually read it, but it's actually just a data packet. Conversation would be used as metaphor for these two computers, connecting. We also say we have a connection with someone if we get along with someone good, and so Registanis just have a similar metaphor, but take it much further. Also for files and directory desktop, that's a whole bureau metaphor, which does not per se exist in Rejistania. It comes from the scientific time when they were just storing as flat files certain values, and so it's edu eha, edu set of and eha value. It's something which is, I would personally think it's quite interesting because by now many files no longer have this structure, both no longer here in the real world as in Rejistanian, but the term still retained. There's a certain conservatism in language, not just in Rejistanian language, but in all language which exists. What's so funny?
No, just reading IRC and
Okay.
people are joking about the data packets are the trucks on the information superhighway.
It's true, they carry stuff from A to B.
Okay.
And there's no fit in one single lots of codes.
Okay, and just to explain what is done with files if there's not really the same kind of metaphoric existence around them. Yeah, there's Ameri. It's a file is read. It's not open per se. It is read as if it was a book or a text. And there's Kelda Dimir. I talked about this. Kelda to retain, Dimir to write. There's IT Mistro, which is quite interesting. IT means to change, and Wistro means to speak. So IT Wistro means to translate, and in this case it translates source code Mechthild Czapp from the language which somebody can read to things which only the computer can use. And yeah, it's Tahi, which means to start, to begin. It's also used to run a file, because then the program which it contains, it starts running. And Isena means to make part of, to add to, and so this is just this is to install. It's also used in much more prosaic contexts, but yeah, it's here also for to add software to a computer, or to add a file to a project of source, a file of source code to a project. And there's Israel, which comes from, which means to take unlawfully or to pirate, and it's also used for unlawful file sharing for all kinds of violation of licenses. Yeah, so pretty much similar to how it is in English. Even though what is actually considered unlawfully is quite different in an area where open source licenses are much more common for things. So there's more to take something and change it, but not release the changes. That's more Israel. Or to take text which has a reason to be classified, and to take this and to transfer it. But Israel. Yeah, there's Wahed, which is it comes from a word which meant to remove and destroy the insignia of a priest, which violated the trust which was set in him of good behavior. Then it came to remove, burn something, and from that it comes to delete a file. It's sometimes words have quite a strange history, and I think words incarnate also. It's important that they do have it, that they just do not just change the sounds, but with every sound change for a word, there needs to be a re-estimation. Can the meaning still be retained in this kind of word? Do we have to change things. Does the meaning drift somewhere? Yeah, that's what's important here. What's important here as well. What's Rejistanian does not have that much of a history, but the preceding languages do, and which is why Rejistanian words also sometimes have these multitudes of meanings. We have already talked about kemas, and yeah, here it's also it means to release or to create a new version from something. So to fork. Where to fork actually, yeah.
Hurry up.
Okay. So in this case, it's
We're fine, don't worry. Go ahead.
Okay.
okay. Sorry. And now we come to the part which I thought was a bit funny. It's things which can go wrong, and which, according to Murphy's law, will go wrong. Yeah. There's aziti, which Rejistanian does have adjectives, but they also double as verbs. They can be used with to be with achu, but also on its own. And so here aziti means to be frail. Also, it can be also used like that for a person, but also a program which seems to run on nothing but on hope and prayer. And munali, it's actually means stable, and so if you just put the negation to it, it means unstable. It also means mature, but not in the XXX sense, but there's another word for that, but it means in the sense that a child would not know and care about things like insurance. In this case, in this sense, insurance is a mature munali topic. Yeah, there is kiluta, which is one of the times when Rejistanian just did not really compound, but removed some middle syllables. There it's kilut, which means kilut, which means basically the workspace of someone who makes things, an artisan. But it also means RAM, memory, because the computer uses this internal area to make its calculation. It's basically from that time. And then ata, which means to discard. So something was discarded in, so a piece of memory was discarded in areas where it should not be. And that means to segmentation fault, or if you're on the Windows world, general protection fault, it's there. And it makes it, it's one of the reasons why a program quit unexpectedly. Max normally don't get as specific in this area. Then there is high tier, which is also a compound like this, where basically similar word where basically something in the middle just was removed. It comes from to make a mistake, and til haiku, to make a mistake, and til, which means an insect, something, yeah, basically an insect, even though since the Rejistanians did not have that much, yeah, I would say, biological knowledge when they created that word. Several things like spiders, which aren't actually insects, are also considered part of this class. And then it's well, yeah, it's just one syllable from each word is actually retained. the other things were just removed. I think portmanteau is the word for something like that in English. Rejistanian also does it. Oh yeah, and Helit actually comes from the word for tree, and it's because a tree stands where it does not move. It also means stagnant, not moving. So if a computer is stagnant, does not move, it's crashed. Oh yeah, and then there is, of course, one of the things which we all hope that we should not, which we should not, which we always hope that we will not do, but probably will, some point in our lives. It's well, let me explain it. It's zenit, which means to empty, or zenit means empty, so zenit to empty, and then him tilteha, sorry. So it comes from him, which is part, and then it's tilteha, which means one of the words tilku, to write, and teha, which means save. So tilteha is hard disk, and then him tilteha is a part of a hard disk, and it's a partition. This him is like that is rather productive in Registanians. Also, himenu means a part of a house, and it's a room. And yeah, then tuku means run, so empty the run partition. And that's something extremely glorious that makes you hope that you have a backup. And coming to this, there's going back to Tilterra, there's also etimiku, which comes from which is actually a calque of the word hard disk, which found its way into Registanian. Etimik is disk in Registanian, and yaku means stable. So that is how they calqued hard disk and portmanteaued it then. Itva means basically failure. Itva, to fail, is it would be the verb to it, and so just the failure of the hard disk. Here's no noun, and because it's just a noun adjunct, it's not a real noun, means hard disk failure or hard disk crash. And then Kelela does not really refer to exactly the same. Not really a technical term, but we all know that sometimes if a fail is really bad, smoke rises from the device. And it also fits quite the idea that words can be portmanteaued like this, because it's kelu, air, it's kelu, which is hot, and hela, which is air. So it comes from that, and yeah. Then the last term, where I thought I need to introduce internet actually here, so you've seen it written. It's Mechthild, and of course miyukuta. It worked not. It does not work. And since Rejistanian does not have a progressive aspect, does not really. Well, it does have it, but it uses it only in very special circumstances. It's not actually used in a progressive way, but just a simple present tense for the fact if there are internet problems. Yeah, and yes, there are also grandparents in Rejistanian who cannot express the fact that they cannot get to their favorite sites any more eloquent. So, coming back to the conclusion, and please not noticing that there is a slight markup error which I made. Creating it's important if we create a word that we create the world for which the word is. Language needs a culture, and even if it does not have a culture, there is not. It's like when it's just symbols, when it lacks the entire inherent associations with it. And a word is not just it's not just the denotation, but it's also the connotation. And these things, in my opinion, for a conlang, it's often important that these are actually written down, but yet they are actually expressed. And this things like the history of a word also helps shaping them. So it's kind of important to think if we want to make a culture which is technologically on our level, but does not just take everything from English or from another language which we use as first language, then or source language. But it's just we need a lot of things to do, and there is no easy button which we can just press and it's there. We just need to. We just really need to put the effort into it, need to think of it, need to sometimes despair to get onwards, but in my opinion, that's completely worth it. And yeah, that is the conclusion of the presentation.
Beginning, you said that Rejistanian is kind of Auxlangy. I'm quite curious what you had in mind by that.
I had in mind like that. First of all, it's used as a language which was created by the government because there are many languages in the country, and Rejistanian was created as an auxiliary language, as a meaning of communication. It's basically in Esperanto as if there never was a Latin language and a Greek language, but if there were other languages. That's what I mean by it. There are several things which make it very clear that it's Auxlangy. It's, for example, this way how nouns were derived, and how verbs are derived from nouns. There is this agglutinative system, and as you have seen, the various morphemes are neatly separated via these apostrophes, which of course, like Kara said, we should not use. Some have also used in the first versions of Esperanto, because it's just easier to parse text like that.